went to a meeting in Braintree to get a filing cabinet, and it turned out that the minimum grant was £3,000. And so we just started having wider and wider and wider ideas. And we were chatting on the way home, and I said, how about a heritage trail? And it all went from there, really, didn't it?
Well, I'd been to Ickworth.
That's right.
And there was a show on there for All Our Stories, the Michael Wood show that was on TV on a Friday night. And I'd sent off some postcards to Cambridge and University of East Anglia. And in the meantime, I'd got an invitation back from Cambridge.
That's right.
And one of the things that I ticked as a possibility was a heritage trail. And as we came out of Braintree, you'd said heritage trail.
Yeah.
So you weren't available that Saturday, so I went up to Cambridge, and I had drawn something up, and I think I'd shown it to you just quickly by hand. I'd drawn a heritage trail.
Yeah.
And at Cambridge, the first thing they did, there were 15 groups, and the first thing they did was they asked everybody to jump up and say what their project was. And there were people from Saffron Walden, the museum, obviously professionals.
They did a dig, didn't they?
They did a dig on the common. And there was some old boys from Norfolk, from Toffs I think it was, who'd obviously been doing archaeology for years. There was all sorts there. Well, luckily, as we were at S, we came at the end of the list. So I had a bit of time to think what I was going to say. And I just jumped up and said something very briefly about what the heritage trail would be. And then they allocated us 3 professors to talk to.
That's right, yeah.
Up on the screen they put all these professors, what their qualifications were. They all had PhDs and done ever such clever stuff. And we got like a speed dating session. So we'd get 10 minutes, I think it was, with each of the 3, and they'd ring a bell and you had to move on to the next table. And then my next one was Jonathan. Now right from the start he seemed enthusiastic. He really liked the idea of the oral histories. He was asking me how I'd done them, and he seemed to approve of what I'd done so far. And also, of course, I had these 2 ideas by then, that it would be Victorian buildings, and we'd do Victorian classroom reenactment, and we'd do all these oral histories. So by the time I'd spoken to the 3 of them, I'd got more idea what the project would be.
That's right.
And the very afternoon,
that's right,
they sent us an email saying that Jonathan would be our
brilliant
researcher, they call it. And we filled in the form, sent it off, and he started to comment immediately, and eventually he came down to see us, didn't he, and helped us devise the whole project, really.
Didn't he come once? He came to the village hall, and we met at yours, didn't we?
So he came twice, didn't he?
Yeah,
in the end?
yes he did, and he, as you say, it's got to be beautiful.
That's it, yeah.
And they were, but he was so helpful.
Well, he was helpful with the wording of the application, but also, really, by the end of the application, we had a project.
Because we only had something like 6 weeks to apply for, didn't we?
because it had to be in by the end of June.
That's right.
So I think we actually applied on the deadline.
Yeah.
Or the day before, in case the computer went down.
That's
we applied the day before. And we didn't expect to get the money, but we did think that at least we now had a project to aim for with the History Society.
I think we would like people to look at the buildings with a different point of view, really. I mean, a lot of people just drive through the village without really noticing things and not thinking. I mean, I remember meeting a chap in the flood at Water Lane, and he said, I can't get through up there. And I said, this is called Water Lane. And thinking, well, but people don't associate the names with what's there.
Yeah.
Like Church Lane or
Church
Walk. So it's made, hopefully it will make people have a greater interest in what's around them and in their village. And it is their heritage, and preserve what we've got.
And I think to make people walk, because we've spoken to people who, because there's a main road through the village, they don't appreciate the lovely countryside. If you go to the back of the houses, and there's walks that are just as nice as Flatford or...
Oh, and we were in the Stour Valley.
Yeah.
But don't tell everybody.
Because, well, it's not so full of tourists.
Oh,
It
it
says
isn't.
the honeypots.
Well, we haven't got the art galleries and the tea rooms, but we have got most wonderful scenery.
Yeah.
And it is lovely. The River Stour, starting not far from its source, really. I mean, sort of Newmarket's its source. It's only 15 miles away.
And I think also, to me, it helps to make more of a feeling of a community if you have more idea of how you've got to this point, why those buildings are there and what was there
how we've
before.
developed, yeah, quite.
And it gives people more of an identity in the village,
Yeah,
rather than it just being part of Haverhill,
yeah, which it isn't.
which we don't think it is. But if you can establish the history of the village, then it can continue as a village and have an identity.
And also, I know from dealing with the schools, they've been really quite interested. I think this is something they're doing more and more in schools now. They're teaching them about their heritage as an ongoing thing, aren't they? And other things develop from that. And the heritage of Sturmer, for instance, is very different to that of Steeple Bumstead, because although there are Roman remains in Steeple Bumstead, they're actually where it abuts Sturmer, here in the Stour Valley, not in Steeple Bumstead village. And so they're very interested, and our children go to that school. So they're very interested. And as dealing with Keddington, they were so interested in the links between Sturmer and Keddington. And as you and I know, a lot of what is now Keddington was Sturmer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yes, I think if we can start with the children, you work upwards, don't you?
What do you think makes Sturmer a good place to live in?
Yeah, that's a difficult one for me because I've been here such a long time and it's just home, isn't it? What do I suppose it depends on the individual. I mean, I like being involved with the community, but then that was my own upbringing from my dad. You know, you gave back a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, say David's been on the parish council for more years than he cares to remember. And I've always been involved with the WI or the village hall, and I do the village newsletter.
Yeah. Well, I think once I knew I would retire, and I was working from home for 18 months before I retired, I wanted to know the people around me. And WI was a way to get to know people locally. And I think there's an opportunity to be involved. I think I hear from people that there isn't a sense of community, but I do think you have to be proactive in doing something for the community.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it will come to you without you making the effort.
I totally agree.
And I think, you know, there's the church group which people can get involved in. There's the WI, and I think there's plenty of opportunity because there hadn't been a history group. There'd been Peggy who'd done her exhibition for the parish council years ago, and that had seemed to have got lost. But there was an opportunity to set something up, whereas if, as I lived in Newport before, there were people established who'd been doing that for years, and they're now having Victoria County History do their history. But it does leave a blank canvas, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If things aren't happening very much,
Yeah.
there's an opportunity to try to get groups together.
Oh yeah, I think the nucleus of people we've got, even if we haven't got a major project with the history group like we've done for this last year, I think they will still be interested enough to come to a meeting if we've got an interesting speaker, not necessarily on Sturmer, but just, you know, the wider aspect of interest in history.
Yeah.